Hello civilians. Welcome back to our channel. And today we will be talking about how COVID-19 has affected entrepreneurs and startup. Now, as you guys already know that we are living in tough times. The COVID-19 pandemic has forced people to stay indoors, and although now work from home is becoming more and more common, millions of people are now unemployed with no savings to cover even for their basic expenses. People are unemployed, some of them haven't worked since February or March 2020, and they don't even have any money to pay for rent and are also at a risk of getting evicted by their landlords. With no job, no place to live, no money for basic expenses, and a pandemic throughout the world. If this is not extinction, that we don't know what is. Now, do you remember how the dinosaurs got extinct? I believe you do know that a meteor crashed on Earth and wiped out those poor little creatures. Well, they were not exactly poor though. Now, let's name the meteor COVID-19 and let's call the dinosaurs small startups, and you will get the picture of what's happening right now with the poor startups. And yes, these are actually poor. What we are witnessing is a cleansing of startups from the marketplace, and in these times only the real contenders will survive and the pretenders will perish. So are you a real contender or just a pretender? Watch the video till the end to find out. But before we begin, we would like to tell you that this is a channel of the entrepreneurs, by the entrepreneurs, and for the entrepreneurs. And since we are aiming to be the #1 entrepreneurship channel in India, so please help us by subscribing and share our content with your friends and family to educate them further on the topic of business and entrepreneurship. And do follow us on Instagram. Our community of like-minded people is growing bigger day by day. And now we come back to our topic. Now, as surviving is getting tougher and tougher for the existing startups, new startups are refraining from entering the market right now. Now, just to give you a glimpse of how the market has behaved since COVID-19 scenario, here's our statistics. Revenues have fallen for many industries and they are as follows. Now, blockchain and cryptocurrency, the revenue has fallen by 14%. The gaming industry by 19%. Social media and messaging by 22%. AI and big data by 30%. EdTech and new food by 39%. The automotive industry by 43%. The beauty and fashion industry by 59%. And travel and tourism, well, this was the industry that was really badly hit and the revenues have gone down by 70%. Now, as you can see that it's not about the goods and services. Every industry is getting affected by it, and if industries are getting hit that badly, then the economy of a country will come crashing down as well. According to the World Bank, the pandemic is expected to plunge most countries into recession in 2020, with per capita income contracting in the largest fraction of countries globally since 1870. Now, to give you some estimates, according to the World Bank, East Asia and Pacific will grow by a scant 0.5%. South Asia will contract by 2.7%, Sub-Saharan Africa by 2.8%, Middle East and North Africa by 4.2%, Europe and Central Asia by 4.7%, and Latin America by 7.2%. They also added that these downturns are expected to reverse years of progress towards development goals and tip tens of millions of people back into extreme poverty. I believe now you would have understand its severity. Now, let's look at some common problems that startups are facing right now. The first problem is that investments are drying up. As entrepreneurs, we consider a lot of things before starting any venture, but no one, I repeat myself, literally no one was prepared for this event. Many infant startups who were surviving on the outside fundings are especially finding it hard to breathe in these times. To give you a picture here, now according to Crunchbase, around $64 billion was invested globally in the Q1 by venture capital firms, is down by 17% on the previous quarter and 8% year on year. As venture capitalists and banks are shying away from giving money to these startups, the only way they have is to minimize their expenses via cutting marketing expense or letting go some of their staff. Which brings us to our second problem. And the second problem is firing of the workforce. Now, no one wants to abandon their employees in these difficult times, but founders are in a pinch as they can either save their employees or they can rescue their precious startup. Although the choice is pretty clear, but it's definitely not easy. In just 20 weeks, nearly 55 million Americans have filed for unemployment benefits, and that's more than the number of claims filed during the Great Depression. I'm talking about America only because they have saved the world every time from everything in movies. But in real life, you can see. And the moral of this story is that you can't save your economy via VFX. Now, the third problem is blocked revenue streams. In a report, according to the Bridgewater Associates, US companies are likely to take a $4 trillion blow due to coronavirus pandemic, and since this phenomena is taking place worldwide, the total whole globally will be roughly 3 times, that's about $12 trillion. As the established players are taking the hit, that means the small players don't have any chance to maintain their healthy revenue streams, and this is the reason why many startups are so aggressively cutting down on their expenses and hence firing a lot of people. Now the fourth problem is changing the game plan. Now, as we said earlier, the startups prepare themselves for a lot of things, but global pandemic was definitely not one of them, and when they find themselves in this situation, they needed to adapt, and that too pretty quickly. Offline businesses were left with no choice but to move online, and those with online businesses were forced to take another approach or find another way to roll in revenue. For example, online food delivery startup Swiggy, when saw a decline in food orders, turned to pick and drop services to compensate their nose-diving revenues. There are many examples of such desperate change in operations or even change in core activities of startups in order to survive. But is that enough? Now, there are people who are in more danger but are not actually in the battlefield. Now, you might be thinking that these startups are in deep trouble, but there are people who are in more trouble than these startups, and they are the ones who were just about to launch their startups. Now, you might be thinking, how can they be the ones who are in most difficult situation when they aren't even on the ground? Now, imagine that you are a young entrepreneur who came up with an idea and started to work on it. You gathered a team of carefully selected individuals and then began your journey to breathe life into your idea via your startup. And since you were a noob entrepreneur who couldn't rely on outside funding, so you bootstrapped your startup by pouring your savings and by borrowing from your friends and family. After months dipped in sweat and blood, your much awaited startup is ready for launch. But then the pandemic strikes and a painful picture develops in front of your eyes. As you see the market came crashing down, you see that your so-called rivals, which you thought invincible, are going bankrupt. Offline megastores closing shops worldwide, and many more cruel news ringing your ears. Now the trouble comes in, whether to launch your startup in this situation or wait for all this to be over. But still one question looms over your head, that when will this be actually over? And if you launch your business, will you really be able to survive with this kind of funds you have in hand? But if you don't launch, what about the startup that you created from scratch? What to do? What not to do? Endless questions come flooding in your mind with no satisfying answers in sight. Now, you are a contender or you're just a pretender. What would you do in this situation? Comment down below to tell us. Now, if you think you are a contender, you will jump right into the market by throwing caution to the wind, and you couldn't be any more wrong. Here's why. Think logically for a second. You're about to launch your own startup in this unforgiving market which has already dropped your chances to succeed, and on top of that there's a freaking pandemic going on which reduces your chances of success even more. Hence, delaying its launch can be the best course of action. But then you will think, I have invested so much time, effort and my own money into this, that now you start to remember those days when you and your team gave their all in making this startup and enjoyed the process. But now when it's complete, you are made to hold its much awaited launch. What should I do? You'll ask this question a million times from yourself, and it's actually justified as well, because you invested your all into this and now you want to take it for a ride, but you can't because of the virus situation, and you don't even know how long it will be when it will all be over. You will be forced to make a decision whether to go, irrespective of the fact that there is a turmoil going on in the market and you can hold it while the situation gets better, or if the worst comes to the worst, you may have to scrap it altogether. Now, what will happen if you decide to launch it? Now, if you want to ride the stormy waves of the market, you will launch it, and as we said earlier that you're most probably bootstrapped and don't have much cash cushion for comfort. So don't expect a smooth sailing, and of course you will burn a lot of cash as you will need to advertise your products and services, and there will be lots of miscellaneous expenses as well. Your chances of succeeding will be quite low due to the market conditions, and there is a high probability of you running out of money first before even hitting the break-even point. So you decide to hold it, expecting that the situation will get better soon. Even then, you will have to spend a fair amount of fixed costs, which can be domain name costs, server costs, etc. And you will still be burning a lot of cash without even launching it. This can be the worst decision, as you can leak your already scarce resources without even doing anything. Now, what will happen if you decide to scrap it altogether? Now, if you decide to scrap it completely, then you will be saving yourself from many of the troubles mentioned above. But then you will be guilt tripping yourself that after all the hard work and hustle, you're scrapping it completely and also giving your money, time and effort into dump. But to be honest, it can save you lots of funds and everything else which you can invest in any other venture, which may give you a much better shot at realizing your dreams. Now, concluding all the things we said in this video, this pandemic came out of nowhere and shattered the dreams of millions of people. It's changing the way we work on a regular basis and has hugely affected employees, entrepreneurs, small businesses, emerging startups, and even big trillion-dollar companies like Amazon and Apple. Let's just hope that this situation gets better and we can enjoy our daily lives and hustle like we did before. And remember, everything happens for a reason. Sometimes you have to give up the good for the great. Have faith in the process. And if you have any idea how can a small startup or a new business tackle COVID-19 pandemic, please comment down below. Thank you for being with us until the end, and we'll meet you in the next one.